Welcome back. Now, let's talk a little bit about state of front-end development. I'm sure you all have this question. And you've definitely seen these three logos before: Angular, React, and Vue.js. These are the top three frameworks and libraries to build your front-end applications today. All of them with the goal of managing large applications on the front end that have a lot of JavaScript. You see the files over here? They need to manage that. And they were built to solve that problem. For companies to be able to hire developers and make sure that these developers can work with many, many lines of code in a nice, clean way. Now, there are plenty of articles out there comparing these tools, so you can read that on your own. Because if there's one thing certain in the JavaScript community is that there is no shortage of these articles. However, I do want to add one thing that a senior developer knows. These libraries and frameworks are just tools. And just like tools, each one of them is perfect for its own specific use case. Now, you'll always find people that say, oh, this library is the best, the other one sucks, I'm Team Angular, I'm Team React, or that they'll never ever build an app using this other library. This is not a good way of thinking and doing things, especially when it comes to these three front-end tools. You see, each one of them has pros and cons, and a senior developer only cares about which tool is good for the job at hand. And I want you to start thinking like this and avoid following a library like the answer to all the problems in the world. That simply won't ever exist. There's never a tool that solves everything. Tools change, libraries evolve. And you may be a Vue.js expert now, but in 5 years, if things change and there is a different tool that's even better, you need to be able to adapt. So think of these as tools, each one with its pros and cons. And as a senior developer, you'll be able to look at them and say, this is good for this problem, this for the other, and be able to pick tools accordingly. Currently, though, if I was going to pick one of these, this is what I would do, and this is my thinking process. If I was working for a large bank with massive code base, I'd pick Angular. Why? Because Angular is a framework, which means it is an entire kitchen that they offer you, and its own way of doing things. It is opinionated in that it has specific ways of doing things, so that if you have a lot of developers, like a bank with a massive project, you can be sure that everyone sticks to the rules. Everybody's working in the same kitchen with the same tools. I would pick React if I work for a company with a strong developer team, and that also needs to be flexible and evolve by adding different libraries and tools to the ecosystem. And I can trust developers to build on top of React with all these different tools, something that works for our company, something flexible. I would pick Vue if we want a simple way of writing code that is friendly and might be easier to pick up if you hire a lot of junior developers. Now, these are just my opinions. But you want to start thinking this way. Think in terms of pros and cons, like I said, and not absolutes where we say, this is the best, this sucks. Senior developers don't do that. For now, though, you should know that React is a clear winner. You can see this graph over here. I know there's tons of graphs out there, but in terms of job opportunities and what you can do with React, it really, really stands above all the others. And this might change over time, but again, it's good to not get really, really excited about Vue.js because it's become really popular with the developer community. Perhaps maybe wait until it picks up in job demand. But again, Just something to keep in mind and look at. The reason I teach React in this course is not because it has the biggest job market and potential for you. I mean, that too, that definitely helps, and this was part of the consideration. But it's mainly because it teaches you really good JavaScript principles that will last you a lifetime, beyond just the library syntax. With Angular, for example, this is hard to do. Anyway, let's go back to this again. A good way of thinking about these is to think of Angular like the kitchen. An entire kitchen with all the tools you need to cook whatever you want. And everybody works in the same kitchen. React is the oven. If we want to cook something, we'll use the oven, but we also need other tools. And we'll need to use whichever tool that we want and add it to be able to build it. But it allows us more flexibility. And think of Vue as the microwave. It's super simple, easy to pick up, and a lot less complicated than an oven. So, need to make sure everyone uses the same kitchen to cook? Use Angular. Need to cook something, but you also want to get a little flexible and creative? Maybe have some creative freedom? Use React. And so on and so forth. I know it might be a silly example. I think it's pretty good, but again, I'm biased. For now, we're going to be using React. All right. Time to get started. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.